What happens when an entire generation grows up believing their future has already been stolen? Germany after World War I was not just defeated, it was emotionally shattered, financially strangled, and psychologically humiliated. A nation drowning in debt and shame while its young people watched their dreams turn into dust. And in that hopeless silence, Adolf Hitler found the perfect soil to plant the seeds of a darkness the world had never seen before. Imagine waking up and realizing your entire savings can't even buy a loaf of bread. Imagine parents selling wedding rings just to survive another week. Imagine children watching their fathers break down because their salaries meant nothing by evening. This wasn't a story. This was everyday life in the collapsing Weimar Republic. And Hitler understood that desperation better than anyone else, twisting economic fear into a weapon. Promising shattered people a simple fantasy: you were once great, and you will rise again. But behind this promise was something far more calculated than pure ideology money. Secret funding, power brokers, businessmen, military elites, and hidden financiers who looked at Hitler not as a monster, but as a profitable investment, because fear creates opportunity. And the Nazi dream was the biggest business opportunity of the decade for those hungry for power. As Germany's currency burned like paper, extremist groups exploded everywhere. But Hitler's voice cut through the chaos, because someone was silently paying to amplify it. Industrial tycoons, terrified of communism, bankrolled his propaganda. Aristocrats saw him as a useful puppet, and old money families believed he could restore the empire they lost. Behind every fiery speech, behind every rally, behind every marching crowd was a hidden network of donors writing checks in secret rooms, believing they were buying stability. What they really funded was the birth of a dictator. Hitler's early speeches were not just passionate, they were financed. Microphones, banners, newspapers, transportation for supporters, uniforms for stormtroopers. All of it cost money, and a poor veteran like Hitler wasn't paying for it alone. Companies like Krupp, IG Farben, Thyssen, and other industrial giants quietly fueled his rise because war was profitable. Chaos was useful, and a strong leader meant lucrative contracts. They didn't care about morality, only margin. And as Hitler gained support, he turned his attention to the German military, which was secretly rearming in violation of the Treaty of Versailles. The generals hated democracy, despised politicians, and saw Hitler as a tool who could restore their lost glory. In exchange for their silent support, Hitler promised them an army greater than before, a deal that transformed him from a loud agitator into a national force. The streets grew bloodier, violence became political currency, and fear became Hitler's greatest advertisement. The turning point came in 1933, when Germany's elite circles decided democracy was too weak and too slow to protect their wealth from communism. They didn't want Hitler's ideology, they wanted his aggression. They financed the final push, pressured politicians, bribed parties, and helped engineer the political collapse that would allow Hitler to step through the door. And once he became chancellor, the real deal was made behind closed doors: the Enabling Act. This wasn't passed through leadership, it was bought through threats, intimidation, and money exchanging hands. Members of parliament were coerced, bribed, surrounded by Nazi stormtroopers until they voted to end German democracy forever. One signature transformed Hitler from a politician into a legal dictator, and the world watched, unaware that a nation's financial trauma had just created history's deadliest man. But once Hitler had power in his hands, the world learned a terrifying truth: dictators don't rise because they are strong. They rise because the people underneath them are broken, divided, and desperate. And Hitler understood exactly how to turn national pain into personal profit. His first move wasn't war, it was money. He dismantled unions, silenced journalists, crushed political opponents, and handed Germany's industrial economy to the same businessmen who had funded him. They got contracts worth millions, and in return, Hitler got loyalty. Loyalty bought with profits, not ideals. The Nazi state was built like a corporation where fear was the currency and obedience was the product. And millions were forced to belong or be eliminated. But behind the speeches, behind the parades and flags, behind the promises of national rebirth was a darker financial operation. the systematic theft of wealth from Jews, political enemies, and conquered nations. Hitler didn't just wage war, he turned war into a business model. Germany's economy was collapsing under rearmament costs. But Hitler had a solution: steel. His government confiscated Jewish businesses, homes, factories, artworks, and bank accounts under the excuse of racial purity. But in reality, it was pure economic extraction, the biggest state-sponsored robbery in modern history. Entire families were stripped of everything they owned. Their gold melted, their properties reassigned, their identities erased. At the same time, the SS created a brutal economy of forced labor, where millions were worked to death to fuel Nazi industry. Companies like Siemens, BMW, IG Farben, and Volkswagen made fortunes using prisoners who were treated cheaper than machines. To the world, Hitler preached ideology. To his supporters, he delivered profit. But to the victims, he brought only death. When Hitler invaded Europe, he didn't just conquer land, he looted entire national treasuries. Gold reserves from Austria, Belgium, the Netherlands, and beyond were emptied into German vaults. Priceless artworks from private collections and museums vanished into Nazi bunkers. Factories in occupied countries were dismantled and transported into Germany to feed the war machine. Even the currency used by civilians in occupied territories was manipulated to drain wealth directly into German pockets. It wasn't just war, it was organized economic cannibalism. A circle where conquest funded genocide and genocide funded conquest. But perhaps the darkest secret was the international banks that helped hide Nazi money. Swiss banks accepted stolen gold without asking questions, even when it had traces of teeth fillings and jewelry melted into it. Neutral nations traded with Hitler because money speaks louder than morality. Even after the war, some Nazi wealth simply disappeared, vanishing into secret accounts. Private estates and corporate foundations built on stolen blood money. Hitler may have died in a bunker, but the financial empires built during his regime didn't vanish. Some quietly merged into post-war Europe, reshaping industries that still exist today. By 1945, the world thought it had defeated Hitler. The truth is far more unsettling. Hitler wasn't just a dictator created by hate. He was a product of financial fear, corporate ambition, national humiliation, and a world willing to look away as long as business kept running. His rise is a reminder that societies don't collapse overnight, they decay slowly. Through economic desperation, political division, and the belief that things can't get any worse. The young generation of Germany grew up believing their future was stolen, and that belief made them vulnerable to a man who promised to restore it, even if it required destroying everything in his path. And that's the lesson history tries to hide. Dictators don't need armies to rise. They just need a broken society and a handful of powerful men betting on the wrong future. Hitler didn't rise alone. He was built, shaped, funded, and protected by those who believed they could control the monster they were creating. But monsters don't stay in cages, especially when the cage is made of money. If this story shook you even a little, then make sure to like the video, subscribe to the Pastify Hub, and drop a comment below. Because history doesn't repeat itself by accident, it repeats because we stop paying attention.